Welcome to today's journey into two of the most chilling true stories to ever unfold in the American wilderness. On the surface, these places are paradise, green ridges, winding trails, the kind of peace you only find far from the noise of everyday life. But sometimes, hidden among the trees, is something far darker, something waiting. Our first story takes us to the heart of Arkansas, where a family's weekend hike in Devil's Den State Park turned into a nightmare none of them saw coming. A quiet stalker, a secluded trail, and two young girls running for their lives. And when that's over, stay with me, because the second story will take us even deeper into the wild, to Blood Mountain in Georgia's Chattahoochee National Forest. There, an experienced young hiker thought she was safe, until a seasoned predator decided she was the one he'd been looking for. What happened over the next 3 days is as haunting as it is unforgettable. So, settle in, clear your mind, and as we walk these trails together, remember, the most dangerous thing in the wilderness isn't always the wilderness itself. Story 1: The Devil's Den Double Homicide. It was the kind of summer morning that made you want to leave everything behind and disappear into nature. The air was warm but gentle, the forest canopy breaking sunlight into a golden haze. Devil's Den State Park in the Ozarks Mountains of Arkansas was alive with hikers, picnickers, and families seeking a day of peace. Among them were Clinton and Kristen Brink and their two young daughters. Hiking was more than a pastime for them. It was how they reconnected, how they showed their girls the world beyond screens and concrete. This trip was supposed to be just another memory in a lifetime of adventures. But somewhere in those same woods, another man had arrived, one who wasn't there to hike. His name was Andrew James McGann, 28 years old. On paper, he looked ordinary, a former schoolteacher, clean criminal record. But those who knew him remembered the unease, the way he lingered around children, the way his eyes stayed too long. Complaints had been whispered but never proven, allowing him to slip through the cracks. On that July morning, McGann came to Devil's Den without a backpack, without water, without any reason to be on the trail except one, and it wasn't sightseeing. At 10:42 a.m., a park employee saw him standing near the trailhead, watching hikers pass. Some greeted him, others ignored him. But one hiker later told police he wasn't looking at the view, he was looking at people. When the Brinks began their hike, McGann followed. Always a few steps behind, never close enough to draw attention, but never far enough to be forgotten. The further they went, the quieter the forest became, until the hum of cicadas and the crunch of gravel were all that filled the air. By early afternoon, they reached a narrow section of trail, rock wall to the left, steep slope to the right. No other hikers in sight. That's when McGann closed the gap. Clinton may have heard him first, the quickening footsteps behind them. When he turned, he saw the glint of a knife, not a camping blade, but a weapon. Clinton stepped forward, shielding his family. McGann lunged. The attack was sudden and violent, the knife flashing in quick, erratic strikes. Kristen screamed, pushing one daughter away while trying to pull Clinton back. McGann turned on her. Within seconds, both parents were on the ground, gravely wounded. The girls didn't hesitate. They ran, feet pounding the dirt, their breaths ragged, the forest blurring around them. They didn't look back. Half a mile away, two hikers saw them emerge from the trees, pale, trembling, covered in blood that wasn't theirs. The 911 call was made immediately. Officers arrived within 30 minutes. They found Clinton and Kristen exactly where the girls said, their packs still on the ground, Clinton's hand clutching a branch like he'd fought to the end. The knife was gone. So was McGann. The park went into lockdown. Trails closed, campgrounds cleared. K-9 units swept the area. Helicopters scanned with thermal cameras. Drones searched the inaccessible ridges. Investigators began to uncover McGann's recent movements, sightings at multiple state parks, alone, loitering. Days earlier, he'd bought a large hunting knife from a rural store. On the third day of the search, officers found footprints leading to a creek, then disappearing. The fear grew that he had already slipped away. But on the fourth morning, a homeowner just outside the park reported seeing a man matching his description heading toward an abandoned outbuilding. SWAT moved in. McGann was inside, exhausted, clothes torn, knife in his possession, a map with marked trails including the one where the Brinks died. He was arrested without a fight. In the weeks that followed, the picture became clearer. The attack wasn't random. The medical examiner found deep defensive wounds on Clinton's hands, proof he'd fought to protect his family. Kristen's injuries showed she had turned toward her children in her final moments, as if pushing them to safety. Former co-workers testified to McGann's troubling past, his strange behavior around young girls. Parents who had crossed paths with him recalled unease, but without proof, nothing had been done. McGann was charged with 2 counts of capital murder, 2 counts of aggravated assault, and weapons violations. Prosecutors announced they would seek the death penalty. The Brink daughters were placed in the care of relatives. In their statement to police, one said simply, "Daddy told us to run. We did. We didn't stop." Devil's Den reopened weeks later, but for those who knew the Brinks, the park would never be the same. Trails once filled with laughter now carried the memory of a family torn apart, and a haunting truth: in the wilderness, danger doesn't always look like danger until it's too late. Story 2, Meredith Emerson in the Chattahoochee National Forest. January 1st, 2008. While much of the country was sleeping off New Year's Eve, 24-year-old Meredith Emerson was lacing up her hiking boots. An experienced hiker and black belt in martial arts, she had chosen a popular trail on Blood Mountain in Georgia's Chattahoochee National Forest. She brought her black Labrador, Ella, and texted friends that she'd be back by evening. The morning was crisp and clear. Meredith knew the trail well, and it was frequented enough that she felt safe hiking alone. But somewhere along that path, she crossed paths with Gary Michael Hilton, a man in his 60s who had been living out of his van, haunting national parks, watching, waiting. To casual hikers, Hilton looked harmless, maybe even friendly. To Meredith, he would become something far worse. He struck up conversation as they walked, but his questions were strange, asking where she lived, if she was alone. Witnesses later recalled sensing something off. Eventually, Hilton pulled a knife and demanded her ATM-PIN. She refused. She fought, using her martial arts training to fend him off. But Hilton was armed, determined, and patient. He forced her off the trail, into the forest, and over the next 3 days kept her captive in his van, moving between secluded forest roads to avoid police. By then, a massive search had begun. Hikers, helicopters, and dogs scoured the mountain, finding her car at the trailhead with her phone and wallet inside. Hilton used her credit card in small amounts to avoid alerts. But when police closed in, he killed her. He decapitated her body and left it in the forest. When arrested days later, he confessed, not out of guilt, but in exchange for avoiding the death penalty. Investigators later linked him to other murders of hikers and campers in national forests. Meredith's black lab, Ella, was found safe, later adopted by a searcher who had helped look for her. Friends remembered Meredith as fearless, bright, and full of life, qualities Hilton could never erase. Blood Mountain remains open, but her story lingers like a shadow across the trail. 2 trails, 2 predators. 2 tragedies that remind us that danger in the wild doesn't always come from the weather, the terrain, or the wildlife. Sometimes it's another person, someone who knows the trails as well as you do, and is counting on you letting your guard down. Clinton and Kristen Brink were parents protecting their children. Meredith Emerson was a skilled hiker who fought back with everything she had. Both did nothing wrong. They were simply in the wrong place at the wrong time. If you hike, camp, or visit parks, here's how to protect yourself and the people you love. Never hike completely alone if possible. Even one other person makes you far less vulnerable. Tell someone exactly where you're going and when you'll be back, down to the trail name and entry point. Stay alert to your surroundings. Notice who's around you and whether they seem out of place or following at an unusual distance. Trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, don't brush it off. Change direction, head back, or get to a populated area. Carry protection you know how to use, whether it's pepper spray, a whistle, or another legal defensive tool. Keep essential items accessible, not buried in your bag. Phone, small flashlight, personal alarm. Avoid sharing your exact location publicly on social media while you're still there. The outdoors can be breathtaking, but your safety should always come first. Awareness isn't paranoia, it's preparation. And sometimes it's the difference between a story you tell and one that's told about you. For the Brinks, for Meredith, and for every name we may never know, stay safe, stay aware, and never underestimate the value of coming home. Subscribe to Unforeseen Fates for more stories like this, because some fates are only avoided if you listen closely. Thank you.